Greetings, everyone, and thank you for your help with the technology here. Everyone is helping out, Elra and Leslie. Leslie, I'm so honored to say a few words about you and about your book. And we are all here to listen to you talk about your book. So I'll keep my introduction very brief. So to begin with, Leslie has been teaching at City College for 45 years. And during that time, she has done stellar work with curricular innovation, starting new programs, which have been serving the college community very well. So I don't have time to mention all the courses that she introduced, but I'll mention a couple of them, which are very important. One of them is called the Poetry for the People. That course is taught every semester and is very popular. The second course that she's teaching is also very popular. She's team teaching with Anne Vetrick, and that is the Museum Studies course. And Leslie is also former chair of Women and Gender Studies Department at City College. I want to cut to the wonderful award that she won in 2017. And that award is given to professors who help their students on a daily basis meet their challenges in a diverse body of students. And that award is called Steinbeck Stroud Diversity Award. It is sponsored by the Foundation for California Community Colleges. Every college gets to recommend one professor or a group. So you can see that Leslie must have enjoyed wonderful prestige in order to be recommended by City College. So the award comes with $5,000 cash. Instead of going to Hawaii or some other wonderful trip, Leslie decided to give all her money to start a scholarship. And the scholarship that she started is called Evacha Hilto Nilro Diversity and Social Justice Scholarship. And the first recipient of the scholarship was Helen Pinto. She researched and co-wrote a resolution to establish a land acknowledgement practice at City College. So by using her entire cash award for this wonderful cause, Leslie shows her commitment and passion for these ideals, diversity, social justice. Now I'm making a very quick transition to Leslie's novel. I had the pleasure of reading it when it was published, and I wrote a blurb. I will read only the last 3 lines of the blurb because the constraints of time prevent me from reading the whole thing. When you read the book, you can find it on page 3. Okay, what I said, and I believe it is very, very appropriate, that with the Divine Comic, Leslie Simon has raised the genre of political novel to unparalleled heights. I look forward to using this novel as a required text in my class on American cultures, in literature and film. I have been waiting for such a book for a very long time. Finally, I want to place Leslie in juxtaposition with a professor and author we both admire, Edward Said. What Leslie has done in her novel is what Edward Said's dream was. In a private conversation with a Pakistani author, Iqbal Ahmed, he said, in the context of anti-Semitism and anti-Arabism. He said that peace will come to the area when the two shadows embrace each other. He called the Palestinians the shadow of the Jews, and those two, in order to end anti-Semitism, anti-Arabism, and to have peace, the two shadows have to embrace. And I think Leslie's novel is a wonderful example of the actors trying to reach to each other and embrace that shadow. So I'll end here, and please welcome Leslie Simon and give her a warm welcome so she can talk more about the novel.
Thank you so much, Abdul, for your wonderful introduction. I'm going to have the spotlight on Leslie right now, so she should continue on with her reading.
Thank you, Abdul, so much. Beloved colleague and friend, your kind words mean so much. I also, of course, want to thank Ira, who designed the invitation that got you all here. I love that she chose a street in Chicago. And she also, of course, is managing this whole event. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank Eric Whittington. Many of you know him. He's the proprietor of Bird and Beckett Books. He's helping the sales of the book, and he supports writers and readers throughout the city. He supports musicians and jazz lovers throughout the city. We owe a lot to him. And I want to thank, of course, all of you for being here. I know some of you have read the book, some of you have meant to read the book, and hopefully I will entice you to do that today. So before I get started formally, I wanted to dedicate the reading to two people. I'll start with the first one, the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She, of course, as we all know, dedicated her life to the pursuit of justice. She, like me, I understand, was a secular Jew, meaning that she was not very religious, but she, I found out that she co-authored a midrash. A midrash is an interpretation of the holy book, the scriptures. And rabbis write them, and they're constantly interpreting and reinterpreting and debating and arguing as Jews do. And so she did a midrash with this rabbi named Lauren Holtzblatt on the heroic and visionary women of Passover. And the reason why that meant so much to me in this instance is that Passover figures in very centrally to the story of the Divine Comic. And this is a very short excerpt from that essay that they wrote, or the midrash. It's the midrash, okay. They say, the Passover story recalls to all of us, women and men, that with vision and action, we can join hands with others of like mind, kindling lights along paths leading out of the terrifying darkness. So the second person that I want to dedicate this reading to, her memory, is Breonna Taylor, who, as we all know, suffered tragically at the hands of social injustice in the state of the United States, which is not a land of liberation. Passover is a holiday that celebrates liberation or hopes for liberation. So why am I doing the reading today? It's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right? For those of you who know Jewish holidays. Well, the book was set to come out in Passover. The publishers are so wonderful. Spuyten Duyvil, they're just really great people. And they rushed to get it out for Passover because, that's what I was hoping for. And we had readings scheduled, but you know what happened in March. So COVID hit, and I was not prepared to do a Zoom reading then. That was the spring equinox. The fall equinox is rolling around, and it's Rosh Hashanah, and I'm thinking, I need to do this. And so with the great support of Ira, we're pulling it off. And the other question is, why are you doing this now, Leslie, when we're all working so hard on the election and we need to be making calls and texting people and distributing literature and all that? I just wanted to take this break to think about these two holidays of liberation, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It's the Jewish New Year. And the tradition is that you celebrate the New Year on Rosh Hashanah. It's a sweet holiday. But then you have 10 days before Yom Kippur. And what you're supposed to do in those 10 days is that you go to all the people who you hurt during the year in some way or another, and you ask for their forgiveness, but more importantly, you do something to make amends. And then at the end, if you're a religious Jew, you ask God for his, of course his, but they're her forgiveness, and in God's, undying mercy, you're granted forgiveness. And then you get to start making mistakes all over again. Okay, so the two sisters in this book are Beatrice, who's the narrator, and Leah, her sister. The book opens in 2008. They are old enough to have grown children. They argue about, well, actually they don't argue anymore about Israel. They have different opinions about Israel. Leah is a Zionist, Beatrice is not. Beatrice is still living in Chicago, where they both grew up. She is an immigration attorney. She has two twins, children. As Abdul and Talatu. Abdul introduced, did the introduction. Okay, they also have a third son. Anyway, they have a daughter and a son. She has a daughter and son, twins, and Leah has a son. And those names will come up. So Beatrice is the attorney. Leah had written a brilliant dissertation on Emily Dickinson at UCLA, and then she kind of left all of that, left academia behind, and started collecting silver and other collectibles, and makes her living selling them at flea markets. And she is very troubled. I mean, both sisters have a certain amount of anxiety, neuroses, but Leah in particular is very troubled, and her trouble in a way drives some of the conflict in the novel, or some of the tension in the novel. Okay, so just wanted to set all that up for you. Another important person is Danny Gonzalez. There are two ghosts in the book. They each talk to Beatrice, and she talks back to them. And one of them is Danny Gonzalez, her childhood friend, who is a gay stand-up comic who died very early on in the AIDS epidemic in the early 80s. And he brings along with him the very famous Emma Goldman, anarchist. And so there's a plot element where the sisters get together, the sisters and their families get together every Passover, even years in Chicago, odd years in Los Angeles. Okay, I think that's all you need to know right now. So the passages I'm going to read will introduce you to some of the main characters. And the first one is the very first page of the book, after Aurora Levins Morales' wonderful preface, for which I will always be grateful. So it's 2008, and that's when the present time of the book. It will go back in time and for a couple of sentences forward in time, but it's mostly 2008, and that's the 60th anniversary of the Israeli independence, also known by Palestinians as the Nakba, or the Great Catastrophe. And Beatrice narrates the book, and this is Beatrice talking. My sister had a plan, and she intended to act on it. I started getting hot. So I opened a window. Then I heard it. Chopin. Leah had planned to die to Chopin. A good choice, I thought, as I climbed out the window. If you saw us walking in Chicago down a Jackson Park path, or along Venice Beach in Los Angeles, you would know we were sisters. The beauty, and the funny-looking one who managed the luck of no beauty so well. You wouldn't notice how little we looked alike. Though I love my baby sister, our arguments line up one Passover Seder after another. No one hates a Jew more than another Jew. My friend Danny understood the problem of the self against the self. That's why he tried to make friends again of the two sisters, the beauty, and the one who loved her oh so well. Danny Gonzalez, the wisest comic this side of Lenny Bruce. Okay, so a little bit about Danny. I'd gotten used to Danny, who appeared about a year after he died. We'd grown up together, went to high school, college, even made love one night, his one and only with a girl. He told me it didn't convince him to convert, but it shot way above his expectations. My little bird, my best friend, he whispered. But even though the sex didn't last, I could coast into the idea that he'd stick around, and he did until he died. Then, to my surprise, pleasure, and anxious disbelief, on the afternoon of New Year's Eve in 1983, he arranged his comeback at the twins' 7th birthday party. You think you were done with me? Well, you thought wrong, my little bird. Okay, so then early on, a little bit more about Danny, and then Danny's day. Danny kept his eyes on the boys, and one of them gave him AIDS early on. He died in 1982, the year Mitch and I split up. A bad year, you could say. Anyway, a year later, Danny came back. I think mostly to help me with my sister, our own private civil war. By 35, which was long before 2008, I had a career, a loving though bewildered ex-husband, 2 healthy children, the source of my great happiness, and intermittent feelings of stability, and a sister whose life I barely understood. Okay, so now this is Beatrice taking on a different voice. She's telling the story of Danny coming out to his parents. She's trying to be a poet here, which her sister was, or sister is. Winter had kept on tugging at everyone's nerves, acting like it would not let up, pushing its case with a light snowfall at the equinox in March, and delivering 10 inches on April Fool's Day. You can imagine the jokes. Then it happened, that fresh spring where the air sweeps you into its arms, promising love and flowers, tulips popping open in front yard planters, lilacs brushing backyard fences, people on buses acting friendly, happy to wait for their turn to board so they could stare out at the trees in all their new, bushy, blossomy glory. Danny called it a spring well done. And though I see you have swallowed someone else's voice, I like your attempt at embellishment. That's Danny. Danny, please shush for a moment. Let me indulge as I divulge. The stage is yours, sweetie. Danny chose a day soon after the hyacinths had opened to come out to his parents. He thought his family would love him no matter what. He also knew he loved men no matter what. He figured if they didn't approve, he at least had the weather. Luckily, he got both the beautiful day and his parents. So when they opened their arms to him, he called the day God throwing a party. Okay, so now another person in her life, Mitch, her college sweetheart, who she married and is now divorced from. Danny came through pretty clear that afternoon of New Year's Eve, the day he came back to me. Mitch and I had just split up, and I knew the twins' birthday party would offer a challenge for all of us. I think the kids handled it better than I did. I kept thinking that I had made a mistake. Why had I left this great guy? Mitch was skinny and walked with a limp from the club foot surgeons mostly repaired years ago. He had allergies, he had problems with his back, and he was sexy and smart and never complained about anything. That was it. He never complained. He was always in a good mood. He loved everything I did. He supported my decision to go to law school when the twins started nursery school. Hell, he paid my tuition and cheered the loudest when I passed the bar. He put up with everything. My insecurities, my buried grief about my sister that had become an obsession, my fears that something would happen to the twins at the playground during an overnight trip to a friend's house or on a ride in a seatbelt broken neighbor's station wagon. Always St. Mitch would calm me, never become impatient, and hold me when I outlined all the bad things that could happen. But I knew that we couldn't go on like this. He had taken the place of my dead mother, and I was no longer 12 or 15 or even 19. I needed to stand on my own, and that's the one thing Mitch wouldn't let me do. That's what I knew in my clear moments. But it took me a while to stop punishing myself for leaving the greatest husband on the block. And on really bad days, the greatest husband any woman has ever known. Do you see what I mean about my problem with gray areas? Okay, so now a little bit about Leah. And just so you know, they're the Rubenstein sisters. Okay. Little did I know that the other Rubenstein sister had become as fixed to Holocaust history, past and present, as I did. I thought I alone carried that depressive gene, that Saturnine legacy from Jack, that's one of their grandfathers. Sunny Leah, though, found her way to it. Perhaps Dickinson led her there. The wasp girl who dwelled in an exquisite exile of her own making. Leah's never again followed more traditional lines. Her call for security clashed with my cry for integrity. The heartbreak? that one seemed to cancel the other, our own stone. The stone we brought each year as we gathered at the table for the family Seder under the constant blue skies of Santa Monica or the grayer ones of Chicago's often tepid start into spring. Of course, you say, a Jew obsessed with security would hold Holocaust history close to her breasts. Yes, now I know about the journals. How at first Leah carried the satchel with her on planes and trains and long car trips anytime she left home for more than a few days. That's how Eli, that's his husband, described it, a satchel. Probably from Abe, that's the other grandfather, don't you think? Dad gave all that stuff away. BC, you think your sister didn't know how to hide treasures? Now she digs them up before she buried them. I think she hid that satchel underneath her old bed. So that's why she wouldn't let Dad sweep. He would have thrown the thing out. It remained empty for many years, just waiting, and then she filled it up. I didn't know how to handle this. The way Eli told it, Leah barely balanced on some frightening ledge of her own construction. So I'm going to move toward the end of the book, and then I'll go backwards. I'll go back to the beginning, but or the middle. I'm going to read from one of Leah's journal excerpts, so you can kind of get the state of her mind. Where can I find a place to trust these fears? I used to close my head to BC's rants, and now I discover ones of my own construction. What happened to our people? When did ordinary evil become extraordinary? When did simple-minded ignorance and intolerance, combined with a long-suffering history, turn into a machine, a system, a shadowy double of the hatred that ran the camps? The will and wish to end my people, who give me the will and wish to carry on despite what sought to destroy them. I dig a hole, one circle inlaid inside another to bury myself in. BC always said if someone hates Arabs, they hate Jews. And if someone hates Jews, they hate Arabs. And what does it mean when Jews hate Arabs and Arabs hate Jews? We live inside a candle that has melted halfway, and we know we die when it collapses. Yet we let it burn and watch with sickened pleasure and confused delight the shapes the wax takes all around us. How can we not see ourselves twisting, distorted by the flame our fear keeps lit? And most of us wish no harm. Only a few possess the capabilities to sustain such bitterness. But if we don't stop them, where do we end up? Melted into a heap or moaning at its edges, running from it or making apologies and promises that we didn't know and would never do it again anyway. I know some young Germans who have tired from their parents' guilt and others who have decided they will help Palestinians to show they know how to do the right thing this time. But deep inside, I worry that the legacy of Jew hatred has not disappeared, and now they have a cover for it. And so many others who fight for BC's noble cause, are some of them, many of them, Jew haters? And my sister herself and her self-righteous friends, that Deborah, for example, how did I get to this place? I always knew the uncertainty would gain in the end. I knew where this writing would go, back to where it began. Okay, so now you need some levity. And that's why Emma Goldman is in Beatrice's head. So this is Emma talking to Beatrice, and the grandparents, Ida and Abe, were anarchists. And so this is Emma talking. You don't sign on to anarchism, you live it. You eat it like a thick roast beef sandwich dressed with the best horseradish in town. You relish it like poetry. And then says Beatrice, I can't even have a private thought without Emma getting a whiff of it. I think she's programmed to tune in for words like political and names like Ida and Abe. Yes, dear, you could also use a little poetry in your life. I tried, Emma. Danny thought I sounded weird. Well, then what about theater? The great American theater came after I died, as I predicted it would. O'Neill we already had, but then came Williams, Miller, Hellman, another not so nice Jewish girl. Hansberry, such a pity for brilliance to die so young. And then August Wilson. He roamed the century, gave it hell. And let's not forget the new Jewish kid, the Kushner. What an imagination that one's got, turning commentary into poetry. And then she goes on. Look, I appreciate that young people have not forgotten me. I appear in novels, a Broadway musical, a simpering PBS special, and gratefully in that play I'd like you to read. But the matter with all of that, including this very piece of fantasy in which we participate right now, becomes my issue. Go live your own life, Beatrice. Stop whimpering at the grave sites of so-called heroes of history. Go make your own. Okay, so then we have Eli talking to Beatrice about Leah and his concerns for her. And this is, of course, it's usually Beatrice talking. And so at each Passover, though I'd hoped to come closer to Leah, I saw her moving away from me, preoccupied and less engaged. She still roamed the flea markets, and when Raoul, that's Leah's son, started college, she spent endless hours reading. Eli, Leah's husband, called a few times a year to tell me that he worried about her. But when I suggested therapy, he cringed. That's not the answer, BC. It goes deeper than that. But Eli, that's what therapy is supposed to do, go deeper. I can't explain. Just make sure the two of you are good at Passover. Take walks. She likes that. Bring her to the lake. She likes the park. Take her to the Art Institute. And for the years we went to Santa Monica, she likes the ocean. Take your shoes off. Walk along the sand with her bare feet. Don't discuss politics. Tell her you love her. I began to realize that Eli, in trying to prevent one tragedy, might have been creating another. Through his carefully composed codes, I got the message that he feared for Leah's life. But in keeping her from disappearing, finally, he was keeping her from herself and from us. I was only partially right. Eli knew about the journals. I didn't, until a year ago when he made his usual pre-Passover phone call. BC, I need to tell you about something. Okay, so we know about Mitch, the wonderful husband that Beatrice has left. But then she takes up with her former law professor, who is Palestinian. His name is Paul Shaheen. How unoriginal of me to start dating a former professor. Shaheen, as I called him, in pure moments of tenderness, had introduced me to immigration law through the clinical program at DePaul. I fell in love with working on asylum cases, and I fell in love with him. 10 years older and divorced, with one daughter now in college, Paul Shaheen had lost his first wife, Palestinian like himself, to an aneurysm, and his second wife, Irish Catholic, to a short marriage that didn't fill the hole his beloved had left. Andrea, that's one of her childhood friends. Andrea, who had become seriously involved in analyzing everyone after she entered therapy following her own divorce, suggested my choice of Paul, made a statement to Leah. I disagreed. First of all, Andrea, Leah would never see it that way. She knows me better than that. Second, his ethnicity would not bother her, only his politics, and I bother her enough with my own. But he backs up your position. Actually, we have different positions, Andrea. What do you mean? He thinks my support for a democratic secular state isn't practical. And who would, my old friend? Some of us hold out for it. Any Jews among you? Some. Any Israeli? Any Israelis? Andrea, I doubt you'd want me to lecture on Martin Buber and Judah Magnus or Albert Einstein. Einstein? Andrea couldn't hide her curiosity. Yes, he originally, but before I continue, she cut me off. Listen, BC, I just don't get it. Your obsession with Israel and all that. So Danny prompts her to go to Israel and Palestine. He gets her to go. And I'm just going to read her first day there, or days there. And then I'm not going to read about her time in Israel. I'm not going to read about her time on the West Bank and the Dheisheh refugee camp. I would like you to get the book and read those sections. So this is her arriving in Israel. And what happens there is that Danny and Emma go away while she's in Israel. So she decides to bring Leah with her. Now she talks to Leah. Leah doesn't get to speak, which becomes an issue later on toward the end of the book. Anyway, okay. And so we went to Israel, to Palestine, Leah and me, Beauty and Beastie, sisters. Yes, dear reader, I took Leah with me on that trip. She would not know it until years later. Danny and Emma took their leave, and Leah filled my brain. She didn't speak. I just talked to her. You'll see. 1992, a year before Oslo, after the first intifada had subsided and the second one had not yet begun. Deborah's cousin Shira meets me at the airport in Tel Aviv. I soon settle into the spare room left vacant by a daughter enrolled in Hebrew University. Shira knows of my intentions to go to the West Bank and Gaza and makes clear to me that she does not approve. But she puts me in touch with one of her friends in Peace Now with connections to Jews on the far left of Israeli politics. She figures they might help me. She loves her cousin Deborah, but has no taste for American Jews telling Israelis how to do their business. She only smiles and nods when I come home that first day with stories about how weird it feels for people to ask me directions in Hebrew, mistaking me for an Israeli, like I belong here. Small things like noshing my way home with a bag of almonds from a street vendor. In Israel, it's a daily routine, this oral habit. Jews can't stop talking or eating or writing a book about whatever crosses their mind. Leah, you would love how it feels, but for me, something unexpected, something unforeseen. And so I'm going to end with one of the last passages in the book because it's about something unexpected. It's called Dream, so you get the idea that it's not here yet. Sometimes the unexpected happens, not the slow, even crawl of historical precedent, but a star slicing the night, making it look like morning has come, earlier than expected, brighter than expected, healthier than expected, more beautiful than any one of us could have ever expected, putting odds makers in their place on the ground with the rest of us, in awe. Then this one star gathers others and they file in, dropping off supplies, books, repairs, renovations, parts of our brain we had not used before open up. The impossible appears probable. Who would have guessed? From out of nowhere came peace. You could look down from small hills and high mountains at the scattered dwellings below, tents, skyscrapers, farmhouses, apartments, all over the planet, and see into them, as if one side had been removed, sectioned for better viewing. Bright fires burning in each one of them, but not out of control. They light up the ground below, like the stars have managed above. And so that's where I'm going to end the reading. And I want to see as many of your faces that I can. And thank you again. Oh, God, it's so great to see you all. Thank you, thank you. And I hope that some of you will have questions that if I can't answer, somebody else in the audience can answer. So I hope it's a little bit of a dialogue. Yeah, we have until 3. And anybody, so Ara is going to manage this like she's doing everything else. So you could, I think you could raise your hand. You could put something into the chat. You could, and then unmute yourself when you talk.
Yes, please do share any questions into the chat, or you could also raise your hand through the participants option. If not, just raise your hand physically and I'll look through the gallery to see. Feel free to share comments too, by the way. I think I see Sage with the hand raised.
No, I think that's his son, my grandson, who was just.
I see. Never mind that then.
Hello.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Justin and Kaya.
Hi.
Say hello to his cousins. Another.
Hi, Shaleo.
Okay, so if you don't want to speak by grandchildren, we'll just take over for you.
I see that Roger Scott has his hand raised.
I do, but I didn't intend to go first. So why don't somebody else go first? And go ahead.
Sure thing.
Well, a question for, first of all, Leslie, I'm very intrigued by your book, and I'm ashamed that I haven't already read it, but I will get it soon and read it. Emerson said generalizations aren't worth a damn, including this one, but I have several political generalizations that I think I can defend, and one of them is that some of my favorite people in the world are the African Americans with their political and humane wisdom. Also, enlightened white Southerners who understand the necessity for being just and fair and supporting racial equity, social economic justice. And along with those groups, I put my Jewish friends who were anti-Zionist, and one of the most heroic groups of all are the Israeli reservists who refused to serve in the occupied territories. So my question to you, with your wisdom and great language skills, what do you think about these kinds of generalizations, and how, and in a few words, what has motivated you to be the humanist and literary luminary and activist that I admire and respect?
Well, first of all, I think that's a great question about generalizations, because he's right. No generalizations are ever true. And that was what I was trying to get at in this book. My beloved brother who is here said, I realize there are no demons in this book. There are no, you know, what did he say? I can't, oh, he speaks better than I do. But anyway, that nobody's the bad guy in the book. Nobody's the bad guy. There are people who do bad things. We all know that. But we're all flawed. Heroic. I mean, that's what Emma Goldman's trying to say. Like, you know, get your own heroes. We're all flawed. We all make mistakes. Some of the mistakes we make are tragic mistakes. And I think many of us, for whatever reason, feel the pull to stand up. And so many other people are glad that we do. And I really appreciate all the people who are glad that we do, because they're with us at our side. And so, oh, this is a real cliche, you know, we're all heroes. That's what Emma was trying to say. We're all heroes. She was talking about the Rubenstein girls' grandparents, Ida and Abe, who nobody knows, but they were heroes. They were anarchists. They stood up. They fought back. They were afraid. I mean, my grandmother never got. They had green cards. She spoke perfect English, but never got citizenship because of her politics. My grandfather was worried about being deported. He finally got his citizenship for some reason in very old age. So heroes are always afraid. I'm not a hero. Okay, I'm not that kind of hero. I'm your kind of hero. All of our, yeah. So I don't know. Did I answer your question, Roger?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Wonderful. So I see that Louise has a question, and then Janie Skinner will follow after. I just want to share two comments in the chat.
You didn't say basically what the major forces are that motivated you to become the activist you are.
Okay. That. Thank you for that. Okay, let me talk about that. Well, certainly my grandparents, and their anarchist spirit, which I later, when I understood it, grew to love. And my own parents. My parents were pretty wonderful people. We were very lucky, my brother and I, to have the parents Rose and Charlie. And you'll see that Rosie actually appears in the book. But they're Howard's not my dad, and Rosie's not my mom. But anyway, they were good liberals. My mom was afraid of the anarchist parents who raised her. Not afraid of them, she loved them, but those politics scared her. But they taught me what was right. The guy who introduced them, my dad's best friend, Ernie Arian, and you know, there's a piece of that in the story, fought and died in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. And so I was raised around people like that. I was raised to believe in social justice. And so I think I was very lucky to have that kind of family. However, I also know that many of my friends who are social justice activists did not come from that family. And so they have to tell you what brought them to this, you know, but luckily a lot of us get there.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. So before Louise and Janie goes with their questions, I want to share two comments in the chat. So Tina Martin says, I just want to say that I've read this book, and so has my son Jonathan. We read it for the Joe Mama Book Club, and we both found it very engaging. I have a lot of underlinings. Gail Newman says, your reading gave me an enticing entry into the book. Intelligent, ethical, probing, real and sympathetic characters. Your poetic voice comes through. Congratulations and big hugs. So with that, we're going to go with Louise Discurid, if you would like to share your question.
Well, I think, Leslie, hello, and it's been a pleasure listening to you this afternoon, sitting here in my car. I did not want to miss this actually, you answered my question, I believe. It was a multi-layered question, and I didn't realize that until I listened to you respond to the last question. And really it was going to be, what's your inspiration? But it came through from that reply so well. But I would also like to comment on one thing. I was one of the people that did not get that great support early on. And so people like you and others are my support to learn what path I want to take. And so thank you for being such a great inspiration.
And thank you, Louise. You know, the people in this room are also wonderful. You know, Roger's a great activist, and, you know, Louise a wonderful artist. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that we're going to have Janie go next with her question.
Hi, Leslie. I really enjoyed your book. I read it this summer and found it very captivating. I appreciated the exploration of different perspectives on Zionism within a single Jewish family, and the links to anarchism there. And I just wondered if there were scenes that explored that relation to Zionism more between Leah and Beatrice that you wound up leaving out.
Do you mean leaving out and the reading today? Yeah.
No, like leaving out of the book. Like,
yeah, okay.
were there, like,
you've read the book. You've read the book. Yes, because I wanted to not have it become a political treatise. I was really conscious of that. I wanted it more to be about how difficult these positions are and how difficult the decisions we make about our positions are, and that we have to love each other through them. And the only way to get to peaceful understandings, I think, is to have that love between us and among us. And so I specifically I thought I was going to do that. When I first had the idea for the book, I thought that was going to happen. I thought you was going to hear all about the arguments back and forth. And then I went, nope, that's not my purpose here. You can read other books about that. You can read books on both sides, in between, all sides. Everybody's got something to say. You know, I mean, Palestinians are, you know, what I learned about Palestinians, I worked as a waitress in a Palestinian-owned cafe in San Francisco. And at that point, I learned how we really are cousins. I learned that the Palestinians are called the Jews of the Arab world. They love poetry and literature. They're the merchants. They're, you know, so we look alike. We talk alike, you know. I mean, well, actually, in America, we assimilated. So the Jews and Palestinians in the United States really get to be similar. Back in the Middle East, there are more differences, but we each kind of, you know, assimilate in our own ways. And you get Palestinians and Jews in the room, you're not going to be able to tell who's who. So, you know, so the Palestinian Jewish people have all written and talked a lot about these issues, and there are many good books to read about them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. We also have Louise Nayer who wants to ask a question as well.
Hi, Louise.
Oh, Louise, you're muted.
Okay, I love the book, Leslie, and you are so funny. You know, I really just loved laughing so much through the book, and you just brought up such, you know, great conflicts, but as you say, with love. And yeah, and I love the Danny. Anyway, I love the book. But I was curious, you might not have enough time to really touch on this too much, but the process of writing the book, for those of people who want to really know the whole thing.
I thank you for that, Louise. And Louise is a wonderful writer. She's one of my favorite poets and writers. Anyway, so as is Gail Newman, who wrote in the chat, and so many of you are so talented. Anyway, so the writing process. The title for the book popped into my head at a sleepover at a friend, another poet writer, Alma Luz Villanueva, and I was there with my husband and the kids, and I woke up in the morning, and the Divine Comic title came to me, and Danny came to me, and I was like, great, I got this great idea for this book. Well then, but I needed to go to Israel, and so Ali Light, who is in the room, an amazing filmmaker, yes, the famous Ali Light, and her late and beloved husband, Irving Saraf, invited me to visit them in Israel. They had an apartment for a short time in Tel Aviv. So that allowed me, get this, in the early 90s, as you know, as she does, as Beatrice does, go to Israel. But it took me years to be able to figure out how I wanted to say this. I know one thing I wanted to look at was self-hatred. And of course, if anybody knows about the Divine Comic, it's also about, you know, self-love, you know, Dante's dealing with Easter week, and, you know, there's always that, whatever. So, but the idea of self-love, self-hatred, and that's a hard one to probe. I also wanted it to be funny, but I didn't know I was going to be funny. So that's good. My kids say to me, Mom, you're not funny. And I said, but my students laugh at me. And they say, yeah, they want a good grade, Mom. They want a good grade. Okay. So anyway, I'm glad that some people found this funny, because I looked at humor, you know, and I think there's a certain kind of, and it's very, this is, anyway, more than you ever wanted to know. I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to, that's for another conversation about the humor in the book. But the process, for me as an academic, I actually wrote during the summer. And what I would do is rent a place someplace else. I went to LA for one summer for a month. I went a place to Chicago, of course. And that gave me time and space. That's a luxury. By then my kids were grown. So that's a real luxury. And then there's the whole publishing process, which is difficult and challenging. I had a wonderful agent, Frances Golden. Some of you may know of her. She was the agent for Barbara Kingsolver. But she was retiring, and the new young person took it on. I think it was too much of a hot potato for him. So I just shopped it around and found the amazing people at Spuyten Duyvil to take it on. So there's the writing process, and then there's the publishing process. You got more than you asked for.
Great. I see that Naomi also has a question.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. And now I want to read the book again.
Again.
So thank you.
Thank you. And Noemi was one of my daughter was my first reader, and Noemi, Lori Free Lee was a reader, and Noemi was a very important reader for me, dear friend. And I wanted to make sure she was okay with the character of Mitch. Yeah. And it's also, I have to say this, I'm looking at Louise and Noemi right now, sitting in your living rooms, and that's a lot of fun.
And I enjoyed seeing you and other people. Living alone, it's really nice to see other people. But congratulations, kudos, that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for your gift.
Yeah.
There are also 2 more comments in the chat. You're getting a lot of praise. Betsy is saying that you truly are giving the flavor of the book today. Mazel tov on the book. Your voice is always a gift. And how wonderful to be exploring humor more. Tina Martin also adds, I want to add that in addition to politics and poignancy, there's a lot of humor, so of which we heard today. Congratulations, Leslie. So I'm not sure if anybody else wants to add any more comments or any questions, please do so.
I have a question. Is Abdul-Jabbar already using the book in his class? Is Abdul-Jabbar using the book now in his class?
You know, it's possible that they had to sign off because they were having technical problems. So he may not be here. And I don't think he's done it yet, because the book just came out in March, and COVID hit, and, you know, so, yeah.
Great. I think I see another question from Roger Scott.
Well, not a question. I've already had my turn. However, I'd like to make a very brief comment. Leslie said that she had intended to make this a political tract. And that reminded me of Dostoevsky's comment that he intended to make the Brothers Karamazov a political tract, but he got lost in the telling of the story. And I think when people get lost in the telling of the story, that's when humanity is behind the wheel. That's when humanity takes over. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
So you're getting so many wonderful comments in the chat right now. Shelley and Nadine says that they've always loved your political passion. Now with this book, you've gone even further. Thank you so much. So I'm not sure if you want to have like any ending comments, Leslie, or how else would you want to sort of close out this session?
Thanks for that, Ara. Just to thank all of you for being here and for being my friends and family and for putting up with me. So, you know, Beatrice is not but her anxiety, you're probably familiar with that. And it's the love of family and friends that keeps me going. And this is a very homey reading, Hamisha. I decided to, keep the list to those friendly folks, and hopefully, and then I also, there's a lot of friendly folks back east, and I didn't put them in this invite because I just wanted this to be a Burton Beckett reading. But I just need to say that that's what keeps me going. And I need to, okay, so now for the political announcement. So first of all, you need to see who's had my back the whole time. Okay, so this is the AOC, okay? Okay, so she has my back, and the person, okay, let me not destroy my computer. So, Anita Martinez.
Yay.
Okay. Some of you are working for her. Some of you don't know her yet. Please go to Anita Martinez for College Board. She can save City College. I know some of you love City College as I do. Some of you are sick of me talking about City College all the time. But I really do believe that Anita Martinez, it's very important to remember her name Martinez because somebody has a first name like hers who's also running, can be the leader, the kind of collaborative leader that could save the college. And as we look at these larger issues like Israel and Palestine and what's going on in this country, it has always gone on in this country. I mean, this country has never been free from hatred, but it's a very intense period right now. As we look at the larger issues, I think the issues at home are very, very important. And okay, anyway, Anita's a friend and I love her. So, but I want you to vote for her. And I'm gonna end, and then I'm gonna go back out and distribute some literature. And thanks to all of you who are helping her also. And thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Era.
Yeah.
Oh, Leslie, there's actually one more question from someone named Hilton Obensinger.
Oh, yes.
Have you been able to get reviews?
Not yet, because we haven't sent the book out. So I'm going to start that next week. And so Hilton Obensinger, wonderful poet. I ran into his book called The Day of the Exquisite Poet is Kaput in a bookstore. And I said, I got to meet this guy. And I did. And then he invited me to Jazz, Jewish Alliance Against Zionism, and, read Hilton's books also. But no, we haven't sent the book out to get reviews yet. But if you want to review it, anybody want to review it, just let me know, or just do it. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Leslie. So Tina Martin suggested something, which is how about we all unmute and give Leslie a round of applause. So please unmute yourselves. Congratulations, Leslie. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We'll also have the recording available too.
What about ordering the book?
Yes.
What about ordering the book from Leslie or from Burton Beckett?
No. You go to Burton Beckett. If you're in San Francisco, go to Burton Beckett. I think that's in the chat. It's in Glen Park. You can order from the publisher. That's in the chat, spuytenduyvil.net. Amazon has it if you want to go to Amazon. Yeah, thanks, Roger.
But your first choice is Burton Beckett?
If you're local, my first choice is Burton Beckett. If you're local.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Congratulations, Leslie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Peace.
Wow.
We're back.
Bye bye.
You've seen everybody you want to see.
Hi.
We can leave.
Bye.
Hey, there they are, Abdul. Hi.
Okay. No one wants to leave.
Oh, I see Ish just joined.
Oh. Oh. Wonderful. Wonderful. Really wonderful.
Love you, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to end the Zoom right now.